This week's episode is sponsored by Electric Collab, a psychology-based branding and web design studio that positions founders to win more premium clients with a brand they're wildly proud of. If you want to serve a premium audience, you need brand messaging, design, and a digital presence that reflects the elevated quality of your work. Spoiler alert, Electric Collab is my brand studio. So if a rebrand has been in your mind, I would love to meet you. Learn more by visiting electriccollab.com. Now on to the episode. Welcome to Curious Life of a Child-Free Woman, a podcast celebrating unconventional choices and asking curious questions through the lens of a happy, child-free life. Every week, I chat with experts on today's most interesting topics, inspiring us to think differently, live intentionally, and find fulfillment on our terms. Whether you're child-free or seeking a space where parenthood isn't part of the conversation, you are welcome here. It's not about comparison, it's about possibility. Let's get curious together. We are seemingly more connected than ever, but somehow loneliness has become an epidemic. This is a topic I've been wanting to discuss since long before this show existed, and we've been waiting for the best of the best guest expert, and today we have her. Dr. Jody Carrington is a psychologist, bestselling author, and the host of the UnLonely Podcast. She's built a career helping people understand how we got so disconnected and how to find our way back to one another. Her work is bold, funny, deeply human, and she's going to help us think differently about what real connection looks like in our lives. Welcome, Dr. Carrington.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so happy to have you. I cannot tell you, the topic of the loneliness epidemic has been on my mind way back to the concept days where I was thinking about what do I even want to talk about if I start a podcast? What are we going to cover? And this is just something that comes up a lot for me in my personal life and culture and conversations that we're having. So let's just start by tackling this question. I mean, loneliness can't be new as a human phenomenon, but it feels like it's getting worse. Are we lonelier than we used to be?
Yeah, by a landslide. So I'll take it back just a little bit. So the loneliness epidemic, as I understand it, was first coined by former Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy. So he served the 2 terms right before the Trump administration. And he was the first brilliant mind, I think, to bring it to the forefront in the conversation around a mental health crisis. So many of us, I think, particularly over the last decade, have been astounded by the numbers in the mental health space. So how is it possible that for the first time in history, we are dying faster from emotional illness than from physical illness? And we've never had this much access to resources, to research, to finally maybe beginning to shift a light into the world of mental health and instead of physical health and being, holy shit, this is bad. And now, although the stigma is still massive around anxiety, depression, all of those things, and that 50%, 1 in every 2 kids, early adolescent to early 20s, would say in the last 7 days, they don't even know if anybody cares about them. 1 in 2. And so young moms, particularly 51% of all new moms would say, I'm feeling very isolated in this experience. And there's so many reasons for that because we're just so dumbfounded. How is it possible when kids have 50,000 people on the Snap base that they can connect to? They've never had so many support groups or resources online. And the issue for me is we've also never had access to this many opinions, this many things that would stifle curiosity, that would almost freeze us in this place of, holy shit, I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing it. People say this to me all the time. I think we're in a mental health crisis. This is a psychologist, and Vivek's work has just opened a whole new place for me. I don't think we're in a mental health crisis. I think we're in an understandable human response to a loneliness epidemic because we were never meant to do this alone. That's the 2 things of this human race that you will never automate relationship in the foreseeable future that will match the neurochemistry that happens in our neurochemistry when we're in the same room as another person.
What is loneliness actually? Because I think about this as spending time by yourself, but then I go into the space of, okay, introvert, extrovert. I'm an extrovert. I need a lot of interaction with people. My introvert friends really need time by themselves, but I don't think that's what we're talking about. What actually is feeling lonely?
It's a great question. There's a big difference between being alone and being lonely. You can feel lonely in a room of 50,000 people. You can feel lonely in your marriage. You can feel lonely when you're a mom of 6 kids. You can feel lonely when you can feel completely fulfilled with no children. It has nothing to do typically with other people. It is an emotion that is so profoundly impactful that I think is one of the most important conversations we can be having because it dictates access to the best parts of you. 2 rules to the human race that help me understand loneliness the most. Okay. So after doing this for over 20 years, I think there's 2 truths to this human race. Number one, whoever created us, and I don't care what you believe in Jesus or Buddha or Yahweh at the Great Big Bang, however we got here as human, we are way more alike than we are different. Okay. Race is a social construct. We all start in exactly the same place. We all end in exactly the same place. And our DNA as humans is 99.98% the same. Every single one of us on this planet, we all heard the heartbeat of our mama first. Regardless of age, race, religion, socioeconomic status, or gender identity, we all started right there. And that fundamental rhythmic exchange between a big person and a little person is the emotional regulation that is the heartbeat to all of us. That when things get really tricky, we all come back to this place of, okay, we won't automate that in the foreseeable future. In fact, I often say this, I stole this from Esther Perel. She says, the only AI that's going to matter if you want to be successful in your organizations or your relationships is understanding that the only AI that will matter is authentic interaction. That's the stuff we won't get good at in the world of AI, at least in our lifetime, right? It's very transactional. There's very little friction. That's the intention behind AI. But the beauty of relationships is you need friction to grow. You need to feel that, right? And so the first rule of the human race is that we are neurobiologically wired for connection. We need each other. We do better when we have a village, full stop. Okay. That's where you learn the most important fundamental pieces in life. The second rule of the human race, whoever created us said, despite the fact that I'm going to make you neurobiologically wired for connection, the hardest thing you will ever do is look at each other. And people say this to me all the time. That's ridiculous. I'm a very people person. I'm an extrovert. No, we don't. We are shitty at making eye contact, particularly with the people we love. Now, people always come back to me around cultural differences and neurodivergence and all those things. Again, just stick with me for a second. Think about if we were in the same room, if I have to do this in keynotes, I'm in a room full of 50 people or 5,000 people. I'll say right now, all I want you to do is make eye contact with somebody in the room. And giving somebody that direction is ridiculous because they start sticking their tongues out at each other, their arms cross. There's people in the back that are, oh my God, just think about the last time you were in an elevator. Turn to somebody and be like, hey, how's your day? Or you're walking down the street. If you give somebody a compliment, they think you want to make out with them. We are really in this paucity of being able to just exchange with each other comfortably. And we've never had so many exit ramps. We've never had so many opportunities to look away. And being able to engage with another human being is a skill. And any skill that you want to be good at, you have to practice. I learned this 3 days ago, so I'd share this with you. In the United States of America, 74% of all restaurant orders in the last year were not consumed in a restaurant.
Takeout, delivery. Yeah. That's a huge number.
It's shit like that I'm like, okay, again, let's work from home. Got it. The hybrid model seems to be most effective. We need to get our asses back to work. I can talk about that all day long. Our friendships are suffering significantly. The experience of disconnecting from aunties, cookums, resources that would assist us, the village. We were never meant to do any of this alone. All of these things are required to learn how we mess up, how we repair, how we apologize. And we really have this experience that we just want people to be happy. Okay, we just want them to be happy, whether you have kids or you don't. How's your marriage? Happy? Oh, yeah, so good. I fucking love it. No, you don't. People are goddamn disasters right now, and we just want to be happy. But the truth is, my wish for anybody in relationships is that you have the capacity to feel all the emotions. Because when you do that, it's safe to experience them. You have to name them to tame them. And if I had less places to put them, less places to name them, they eat you from the inside out.
Okay, so much to unpack there. And yes, part of the reason this show, this container exists is to be a space, hopefully, where child-free people can express those emotions and ask those questions and get into this. So you mentioned work from home. That stat about restaurant delivery is insane. And of course, it hasn't been all that long that we even had the option to get food that we didn't cook and have it delivered to our house. So my instinct is to blame the internet for all of this stuff, or at least to start there. social media, all these things that have happened since we're living life online. But how have we let this happen? As soon as I start to think, oh my God, smartphones are the problem. But if smartphones came out and we were like, oh no, we need human connection, we would have just stopped buying smartphones. We're all opting in all the time.
It is such a good question. And I'm like, the next book for me is all in my head about this because it's like, okay, so what are the fundamental components of the optimal human operating system? And where have we went wrong? So I think the institution of marriage is a lie. I think the way that we have set up the parenting world, all of those were rules that were established for a world that no longer exists. So if we take it back to this place of how do we do best with humans? The way the world was designed made so much sense for our grandparents, our great-grandparents. Because there's sort of 4 things that I always think about in my head. So like, bear with me as I kind of navigate it. But it's like, you need a regulating other, so an attachment figure. Okay, so this is like basic stuff of John Bowlby and neurodevelopment. When we come into the world, if you disconnect from an infant, they die. And so how you learned how to regulate emotion is that you had enough secure adults around you that could be like, no. Sharing is caring. Get back here. No, you can't. Yes, you can. Do not punch that. Come on. Now, 2 generations ago, we had much more proximity with each other. It is estimated that our great-grandparents looked at their children 72% more of the time than we look at our babies today. Think about the square footage of the house that we raised our children in. Think about the size of the beds that our grandparents slept in. My personal husband and I, we got a king-size bed. I don't even know where the shit he is most of the time. But my grandparents had to figure this shit out because they had nothing else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, makes sense.
And my husband and I agreed when we got married almost 18 years ago that we wouldn't have a TV in our bedroom. We still don't, but we take our smartphones to bed. That's dumb. You understand? I don't even know that I like him a whole bunch now. I mean, we've procreated. Everything's fine. We're both successful in our careers. So we high five. Our nervous systems are through the roof, but not because they're for each other. So that attachment piece becomes really, really critical, and it's become disconnected in so many ways. Technological advances isn't the problem. How we use them is the issue. And if the hardest thing we ever do is look at each other, we've had so many opportunities to look away. This is something that I think we will come back around to, but the horse is out of the barn. I mean, I remember in the beginning how cool it was to automate everything. It reminds me so much of smoking. We thought smoking was good at one point too, and then we got some data and we were like, oh, fuck, that was bad. We should take ashtrays out of planes.
I mean, we do this again and again, right? We do technology first, advance first, then we question, was that a good thing to invent or to create? And you mentioned automation. That's at a whole new level now with AI. And as an entrepreneur outside of this podcast, you're starting to feel like if I'm not automating with AI, I'm an idiot. I'm behind. I'm not advanced. That's just going to get more and more and more. And you mentioned that authentic interaction and the relationship piece. And now we're talking about an attachment figure. For people listening here who aren't parents, don't want to be parents, and we have people who are married, we have people who are single, as adults who are listening to this thinking, okay, attachment figure. How do I get that? Who is that? Is that my spouse? What if I'm single? Is it my parent? What if we don't get along? What is that?
So we all have a childhood. This is the piece that I want to talk about in this first place, right? People say to me as a psychologist, does it always come back to your childhood? Yes. Fuck yes. That's where our understanding of emotional regulation comes from and our capacity to those around us in that time for them to give it to us. And you can't give away something you've never received. So if you come from multiple generations of abuse, neglect, and trauma, the people in your world were doing the best they could with what they had. And it doesn't sometimes mean that it was enough. It doesn't sometimes mean that they couldn't, but all of those things are where I land on the attachment figure piece of it. Okay, so it's coming back to that. The second pillar, I often talk about it as a keeper. You know, what did we need to sort of keep this human operating system good is something I call kin or the social circle. This is way outside of childhood. Who is our regulating other? Is it your mentor? Is it your best friend? Is it an online community? Is it somewhere? And what we know is the more connected you are to your partner, to your many partners, whatever your story looks like in any particular day, who is that walks you home? And it comes back to me at this Ram Dass quote. This is the quote that changed my life. Ram Dass is a dead guy and a yogi and a philosopher. And he said, we are all just here walking each other home. And I don't know that I will ever hear a more profound statement because it is that piece for me that reminds me, okay, so what was the bones of your childhood? That's not deterministic, but understanding it is just you and understanding how you've developed. Two, what does your social circle look like? What does your kin look like? Who is assisting in not only raising you, but still mentoring you, growing you? I don't give a shit if you're 10 or 55. We still are very much related to what's going on in that place. And then the third thing for me, I think, is rhythm and what happens in your world to provide a predictability. What is your expectation around traditions? The safety net with which you practice your day. Tuesdays are, we meet here, we have practice here. Wednesdays are here. We know that family Thanksgiving is with our group of friends. We have Friendsgiving. That's what we do because I want to throw punch everybody in my family. Cool. So what is your rhythm and your ritual that sort of helps ground you? All of this comes back to a regulated system. When we have access to the best parts of ourselves, we are our best. When we start to lose that, when we get overwhelmed, when we have nobody to walk us home, when all of those systems, those rituals and those rhythms start to fail, we become unwell. And the fourth thing for me is always around role clarity. Why am I here? What is my role? What is my expectation in this relationship, in this job, in this friendship? And so for me, thinking about those four things, we're in a time where all of those have been significantly threatened by a massive implosion, one of the two, of technological advances that has created a really tricky place of a regulating other because we have parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles on phones. So the village has become significantly compromised. Secondly, the kin group, our social circles, have been separated. We're eating from home. We're ordering from Amazon. We're not going to the grocery store, all of which have made life beautiful and easy and lovely. There's nothing inherently wrong in that. The cost becomes the question. When you are feeling so lonely and out of control in your own body, we don't deserve to live like that as humans. We're here for a very short period of time. And so what's our ritual and our rhythms that sort of kept us connected? Did we go to yoga? Did we go to church? I don't care. You have your polyamorous meeting group. Amazing. You all want to get together and talk about Star Trek? Fucking brilliant. Let's take a look at these three things. It just gives us a roadmap to suggest here's how it was built. Here's how this current iteration of the role clarity has been destroyed, particularly for women. If you were born with a vagina 20 years ago, you knew the plan. Now, there was no freedom in that, which was shitty, and I would not trade it for anything, the development that has happened, but there's been a cost to that. Because with the freedom comes such uncertainty. I can choose not to have children? Fuck yeah, I can get a credit card? Are you kidding me? You fucking right, bitches. Now what? Now what continues to say to me, oh, you're very successful. I mean, this is me. I got a PhD and I didn't have a husband. When I went back to my little town, I'm 33 years old. I'm a doctor. I'm working in a prestigious hospital in this province. Oh, that was so cute. So when are you going to get a husband? Holy fuck. Like, what do you want from me, people? And at the end, right? When are you going to have children? And what is your expectation? And even now, I will tell you this as a 50-year-old woman, it never occurred to me that I could choose not to have children.
Which is a beautiful thing. All of this choice, this freedom is such a beautiful thing. But I do think you're right that it's put us into, I don't know if I want to say consequence, because I don't want to paint it in any way as a negative thing. And I think some of these freedoms are being compromised or people want to compromise them. So I want to be steadfast in my choice. But yes, our lack of connection to ourselves, because as you said, exit ramps, I love that phrase. We have so much distraction at our fingertips all the time. And I saw somebody talking about this. This is like an irresponsible quote because I cannot remember who it was, a doctor. And he was talking about how boredom is required for us to ponder these big questions. It's when you're standing waiting to cross the street. It's when you're on the airplane and you have nothing to do. It's sitting at the traffic light. It's all those little micro moments where, quote unquote, bored, where your brain does start to get into, what am I here for? What is my purpose? What do I want my life to look like? And we just won't let that happen. The little bit of discomfort that comes with having to have those thoughts, just get on my phone. It's just instant. And then what are we losing? What are we accidentally giving up by constantly distracting ourselves? It feels massive.
I guess just to come out the other side a little bit, I've never been so excited to be alive. Mostly because we're at a very interesting crossroads in this generation of trying to rewrite scripts. We are still at the heart of it. I've assessed it and treated thousands of people in this country. Not one time have I met a bad one. I still believe in the goodness of humanity. And right now, it is so easy to become successful in business. It is so easy to develop a really healthy relationship, mostly because the bar is so fucking low. If you start to understand that all we need now more than ever is authentic interaction, to slow down, to get eyes, to hold hands, to remind people that they matter, to give out a compliment at the grocery store. Listen, if you don't even want to talk to people because you're too overwhelmed, wave at your neighbor. Get out in your car and wave at a stoplight. You wave at somebody at a stoplight today, this is how powerful you are. You can not only change your life, you might save it. That is where we're at in humanity. And I cannot wait to get out of bed every day. As you know, 18 years trying to keep this shit together. I've written a few books. I think I'm going to take over the world. All of those things where I'm living in this life. We know when we're regulated what we need, what we don't need, what direction, the discipline of connection that it's going to take to do right by the people that are in our world right now, whatever our community looks like, whether you chose to have children or you didn't. We are all in this together. And people who choose to not have children in our life have become the most powerfully important people in our world. And I am so grateful. Aaron's brother and his wife by choice don't have children. I think about how much time we depend on them. The roles of what we will play in a community is, I think, going to become much more important than deciding how did you make a right choice or did you choose to not have kids? Now what? It's got to be really sad. Get fucked. There's so much need for a reconnection revolution in this moment. And we each have that capacity. And when we are very concerned about defending our choices and our beliefs and trying to make people understand our perspective, we lose access to the best parts of us. And that's all we need right now.
Reconnection revolution. I am here to support you in making that happen 100%. I love the reminder of community where it's like village, tribe, kin, so beautiful. And we just don't use them enough in society. And you've been talking about nervous system regulation, which is something we did an episode all about that. And it was one of the most listened to episodes. I mean, people are really curious around this, which is beautiful. And I want to learn more too, right? I know the difference of how I behave and treat people when I'm regulated and when I'm not. I'm trying to be in the space of regulation more. But I wanted to ask you, is there a tipping point there, or maybe not a tipping point, but maybe a misinterpretation? Because I also see things on social media where it's almost embracing canceling plans, embracing stepping away from people, from interaction, from community in the name of self-care. And to give an example, because I feel like I'm not articulating this well, I saw this woman, she did this post and it was this blanket, you're always allowed to cancel plans with me because if we had plans and you cancel, I probably didn't want to do it anyway. I'm going to be in my bed. I'm going to be thrilled. No shade, no offense taken. If we're supposed to get drinks and you don't want to, no problem. We're supposed to go to the movies. You don't feel like it. No big deal. And I just thought, but wait, yes, I know that feeling at the end of a hard work day. And you're, am I really in the mood to put on makeup and go meet this person and cross town and whatever? In this moment, no, I'm not in the mood. But every single time I go, oh, thank God I had that interaction with that person. It just feels so nourishing to do that. And I almost feel like we're going far the other way in some cases. My nervous system can't handle it. I'm taking a mental health night in and I'm not attending the girls' weekend that we all had planned. But what if that is a really important part of the cure too?
Oh, it is. And there's such an important conversation around boundaries in there. I actually think that the greatest education will come in understanding the neurophysiology of humans in this next generation. Can I break it down just real quick for you? So
Please.
I'll give you the neurophysiology behind emotional regulation. I know you'll have listeners to this, but you and I could do this and I'll talk you through it. So I want you to put your hand up. If you're driving or you're running or you're whatever you do and listening to this, just do it. Make sure you do it safely. So put your hand up, tuck your thumb in the inside of your palm and wrap your fingers around that thumb. So you've got a fist with your thumb tucked inside of you in your fist right now in front of you. And if you look at that, that's a hand model of your brain. So that's about the same size of the brain that's sitting in your skull in this moment. Okay. And what I want you to think about is if you flip your fingers up, tucked inside is your thumb. That represents your limbic system. Okay. So your arm is your spinal cord. Your wrist is your brain stem. Your thumb represents your limbic system. That is the 3 emotional regulation strategies we get for free: fight, flight, and freeze. That is the most primitive part of our brains. We all have it. It's developed before you take your first breath. It is where we go to when we lose access to everything else, when you get in an accident, when you've been traumatized, when you get wildly hurt. Okay, you just go back to fight, flight, and freeze. What separates humans from most other mammals is we have the prefrontal cortex that wraps around the limbic system. So now if you wrap your fingers back around your thumb, that represents your prefrontal cortex. That part of your brain lives right above your eyeballs. Everything you've ever learned in your life lives right above your eyeballs. So housed in that prefrontal cortex are things like your childhood phone number. Most people can rattle it off to me, okay? Any language you speak, any musical instrument you play, any cultural tradition, the middle name to your aunt, everything you've ever learned in your life lives right up there, okay? Including how to be kind, how to use your words, how to apologize. And my friend Dan Siegel said, I want you to think about this like a lid. When your lid is on, you have access to everything you've ever learned in your life. So if you look at somebody's child and they're making good choices and they're using their words and they're being kind, you're like, oh, that's them with their lid on. Okay. They have access to everything anybody's taught them. If you've ever went on a second date in your life, you chose to go on that second date because your prospective partner's lid was on. Have you ever heard this? She slipped her lid. He's lost his friggin' mind. Okay. So that's the definition of emotional dysregulation. You don't lose your ability to be great. You lose access to it. When you bring a baby home from the hospital, how do they let you know what they need? They lose their friggin' mind. If you don't have children, we're very much aware of how children operate in the world. If they lose their mind because they don't have enough up there that says, Auntie, your voice is annoying. Or, Daddy, can you change my bum? They lose their friggin' mind. And the job of big people is to do what Ram Dass taught us, to walk them home. And every time we do that, we create a neural pathway that allows that kid to regulate when big people aren't there. If in your childhood, in that attachment early experience, you have enough people that allowed you to put your lid back on in a regulated way, you now learn to give that away. When you go to school, you can say, instead of fuck you, you can go, I don't understand that. I'm sorry that you're raising your voice, but I can't hear you. When you start to date somebody, if there hasn't been a lot of people that have taught them how to do that, when their nervous system gets distressed, they flip. All they have is fight, flight, and freeze on board. Okay. So why it becomes important to me to understand you're regulating others, which your experience has been like, is it very much dictates your capacity to stay calm in times of distress. And we develop these skills all of our lives. And so sometimes it's a hockey coach, it's a teacher, it's an aunt, it's a mentor. This is why community is so critically important. Parents are not good enough to develop all of these neurochemistry, right? Because we flip our lids all the time. We lose our fucking minds. I want to throw punch everybody in my life. And so having a good teacher, having a good mentor, having the best aunt, a grandparent, all of those things matter. Getting with a partner who's emotionally regulated can be one of the most curative experiences in our life. One of my friends, Logan Erie, one of the foremost dating experts, and she's fucking brilliant. And she talks about what you're looking for in so much of this process right now is the regulating other. And think about this in your friendships. Some of our greatest mentors, the ones who stay with us the longest, are the people who can stay calm in times of distress. Those are the ones who we lean on in certain times. It doesn't mean you don't like people who lose their minds sometimes, because we all have it. When I think about being emotionally regulated with respect to your question, I think oftentimes we are in a world now where our lid flips a lot. So before we even pee, we're checking our phone. And I promise you, there's nothing good in there that's going to lower your cortisol, that's going to keep your lid on. You're in your email trying to get ahead of the game because you're an entrepreneur and you're doing these things. There's nothing in there that's, holy shit, you're amazing. It's, fuck, I got to do this and I got to do that. So your shoulders are like this before you even step out of bed. Okay. Then we check social just to relax a little. If you're old, you're in Facebook. If you're medium, you're in Instagram. If you're hipper, you're in a TikTok. And there's nothing there. It's all the comparison. Like, holy shit, that bitch is working out. And then we step into our own partner or somebody who's asking stupid questions like, where's the spatula? Fuck up, I know. Like, you're so dumb. I should have married, whatever. And so like that. And then we strap on an Apple Watch just because we're trying to stay healthy.
Yep.
Now, this is a cortisol shooter. Everybody has access to me right here. My father-in-law, the school, everybody on my team, my agent, everybody right here. Every time I had to shut off notifications when I get an opportunity to speak to somebody brilliant like you, because if I listened to what's going on here, we just buried my dad 133 days ago. I am so worried my brother's not going to be okay. So if he texts me during this thing and just says, hey, Joe, can you call me right now? I'm not that good to stay connected here. You're going to lose 40% of me, right? Introduction of the smartphone, 2006. That didn't happen very long ago. So our disconnection, the discipline of connection, and we're seeing it already in young people, but really just on purpose, let's go back to flip phones because we understand we're not that good. That is not a criticism. That's a liberation. You are not good enough to have all of this instrumentation into your heads because we're not designed for this much noise. We used to have a day of rest on Sunday. I remember when you couldn't go grocery shopping on Sunday. I'm not that old, but you couldn't. Even if you had a religious affiliation or not, depending on what that was, Sundays were sacred, Saturdays were sacred, whatever that looked like. I was in a hockey rink yesterday, up with my son at 5, home at 6 o'clock, screaming at other parents. And then today we step into Monday. We're supposed to just be cool. So the point is that when we understand neurophysiology, we start to really get back to this idea that, self-care isn't about bubble baths and kale. Because you can drink all the fucking kale you want. If you're doing it in a dysregulated body, strapped to 1,000 notifications, average people, you and I as entrepreneurs, would get 267 emails a day. Which means every time that comes in and I forget to shut off my notifications here, I'm listening to you. We're having this great conversation, but I see Spanx is sending me something there. I should probably get some because I'm getting fat. That's happening. I'm so fascinated to watch the discipline of connection that is going to be necessary to unfold if we want to get the best out of human relationship. If we really remember why we're here, which is joy and laughter and to feel all the emotions. You lose access to those so quickly when you're overwhelmed.
I love the discipline of reconnection. Honestly, what do you suggest? You and I are both sitting here and we have Apple Watches on. And clearly, this is your expertise, your line of work. I've put a lot of thought into wanting to be more present, wanting to be more connected. I haven't stopped wearing an Apple Watch. What do we tactically do?
Exactly. And I think it really has to be an invitation. You don't have to do anything. Because I think this is the issue, is that when we start to tell people to do stuff, they're like, yes, but. And I really just want to invite you to consider how much of this beautiful short life we're going to miss. And this week, my only goal is to charge my phone outside my bed 3 nights. Because there's some times where I got to make sure somebody's on the road, whatever the deal is. If you leave your phone in the car when you go out to dinner with somebody and people are like, oh, no, I'm going to turn it upside down. I'm going to whatever. If it is in the car, you physically cannot get it. There is a massive change in your neurophysiology. Because we're just not that good, right? I think on purpose, considering a couple of things, like charge your phone outside your room, maybe 2 nights. Here, I'll give you another little tip that works really, really good for me. So if you right now in this moment, drop your shoulders and be very conscious about where your tongue is. I know this sounds a little bit creepy, but if you move your tongue off the roof of your mouth, the most primitive response to stress is we slam our tongue to the roof of our mouth. Now, historically, viscerally, this would happen when we were going to get attacked. So we would lock our jaw so that we would have more capacity to sustain a hit or to indicate to our body that it's ready to fight. The reverse engineering of that is to drop your tongue, drop your shoulders, wiggle your toes, and let your gut out. This is a signal, and based on hundreds of thousands of years of Eastern philosophical practice, when we understand the basis of Buddhism or any sense of the mind-body connection, we spend a lot of time up in our heads and very much out of our hearts. And when you give yourself permission to drop your shoulders and drop your tongue, a lot of times people get very tired. This is the fundamental basis of trauma work, any trauma work that I do. If is a good, successful session, they should feel tired because we've given their body permission to feel safe. We get very few indications in the run of a day that we are safe because we're strapped to the watch. We have our phone here, and none of these things inherently indicate that we're on fire. But the constant inundation, I'm not happy when I get email notifications, rarely, right? It's not, fuck yes, there's another job, which generally like, oh God, what's that? And so this responsibility of even putting the word shoulders on a sticky note, throwing it up on your bathroom mirror, on your computer, in your car, and every time you see it, you just give yourself permission to drop them. If you are safe, and that is true, and for many of us, 90% of the time, we're not being chased by a bear. So the indication would be that in that moment, even if we're in the middle of a divorce, even if we're in the middle of a diagnosis that is scaring us, even if all of those things that happen in life, we're financially insecure or whatever the deal is, in any given moment, if we can be where our feet are and give ourselves the permission to just drop that just for a second, it's almost refueling a little bit of that tank so that you have the capacity and access to the best parts of you. And that, I think, is what we're missing more and more. This is the definition of burnout. The work you do that defines how burned out you are. It's your ability or lack thereof of rest in your nervous system that is the problem all the time.
Talk about being up in our heads. I didn't even expect us to talk about anything physically. We don't even connect the dots, even though I went into this thinking, okay, loneliness, what's the outside world done wrong that got us to this place? What are we doing wrong as individuals? What should we be doing differently? And I still wasn't thinking about how does this exist in my body? What is my responsibility to stay calm, stay present? And it's so true. I love having real data. It doesn't surprise me at all that keeping your phone in another room while you sleep or in the car. I went out to dinner last night with a mentor of mine, friend/mentor, and we are very good. Our phones are in our purses. Wouldn't have even thought to bring it out. We're having this incredible night together. She goes to the bathroom. And of course, my first instinct is I'll get my phone out of my purse. And then I thought, no, not to toot my own horn, because that might be the first time I've ever actually kept myself from doing it. But we were so in the moment in this great conversation. And I knew if I touched my phone, I'm going to check my email. As you said, no good could come of it, right? It's just going to put me into tomorrow morning, or I'm going to respond to this after the dinner, whatever. So I just sat there by myself for 3 minutes. It was so brief, but we just picked up immediately when she got back, and I was, oh my gosh, this is the simplest, stupidest. Why would I ever get it out? What if I did this? How do I extrapolate this, right? So that when I am in an elevator, when I am walking home from the gym and making eye contact with people on the street, instead of scrolling to get ahead on some email while I'm on the sidewalk, it's the discipline of remembering that when we have now been so conditioned to do those little micro exit ramps.
And it is just so automatic, which means it's going to take a little bit of time to undo. And it's that grace for ourselves to know that in this very modern, technologically advanced world, you won't be that good. That there will be opportunities and times where you'll do that. Give yourself permission to do those things without judgment, but be very clear that the gift you're going to give yourself by sitting in that restaurant and noticing the couple that might be on their 54th date, noticing the waitress that is barely keeping her shit together, noticing, why is that guy have a dog in here? Those kind of wonderings. And often what happens is when we go to bed at night, it's the first time these days that there's stillness. And so we don't like that. We get noise machines and CPAP machines, and people got fucking birds. Like things are happening, and I can't help but fall asleep to my phone. I need noise. I need all those things. And so we're in a paucity of stillness. We're in a paucity of presence. And the idea of just going for a walk, going for a run, not having music in your ears, give yourself 5 minutes. You can start small. I am the biggest pushbacker to woo-woo shit. Meditation is exactly what I'm talking about, all these things. I hate that word. I think that's so dumb. When you tell me to sit there and think about nothing, do you want to know how many things I got to think about? You tell me to think about nothing. I'm thinking about everything. And so I've really loved transitioning this concept into being still a few times a day, once a month. If that's all you got right now, give that to me. If it's once a week, the idea of just being quiet for a second. And there's always this challenge that we have sometimes in our group about even just sit still for 30 seconds. If you have to put a timer, 30 seconds, just watch what happens. And it is so remarkably impactful. You become so much more effective, so much more productive, so much more curious than checking your email on the way home and bumping into people and missing the moments of all of those things that remind us that humanity is still good and that people have their own choices that are beautiful. I wonder your thoughts on this, the premise of your podcast. When I think about speaking to anybody who is marginalized, I don't know if this group fits that, but I would imagine it feels very like you have to protect or defend. That's the first question that probably comes out of many people's mouths in your family systems. Without intention, it is the first question that many people ask in a new work environment. Hey, do you have kids? It instantly, on that sort of defensive posture, really allows us to lose access to the best parts of ourselves right away. We're often in this place of, oh, you're judging me, bitch. Okay. And I think it's how can we build that resilience up a little bit more? And I think it's a little bit more in that giving ourselves that gift of stillness in a world where when we're so overwhelmed, any of those questions will come as an attack. You don't deserve that. You know why you made this choice. It's brilliantly informed. It is from a place that you steadfastly believe or don't, or whatever that is in your space. That's 100% yours, and that you're the only one that matters in this process. Everybody else has their opinion and their judgment because it might come from, I don't want you to be alone. Who's going to bury you? All of this shit that your mother's worried about. The intention's lovely. The perception is, I've done something wrong. That's not true. It's almost the refueling that has to happen in some of that stillness and that presence that allows us grace and empathy for other people, that allows for joy and creativity and productivity and longevity that you deserve, right? In this decision that you came to beautifully.
Thank you for that reflection and permission. And yes, I mean, it is important to me. And I think this goes for any topic that we could talk about, but there's always a dark side out there on the internet where it is this very defensive bitch culture, from my perspective, around being just so a harsh stance on why being child free is amazing and don't judge us and we're going to defend it to the end. That is not how I feel at all. I do think a lot of people have good intentions. I mean, part of this mission, I think, is to increase representation, that being child free is just a thing, right? It's just a parallel path. We're not crazy. We don't hate kids. We're not trying to tell you that having a kid is bad. Not at all. Quite the opposite. I think that's beautiful. We need kids. We need everything. So I think that reminder, representing that we're out here and we're normal and we're fine, and also the regulation of ourselves. I don't want to get swept up in any of those conversations, even if somebody asks me something that isn't well-intentioned. That happens too. And women deal with this. All people deal with this. It's just a matter of scope. So yes, I appreciate that reflection.
And I love to just think about the safest room you've ever been in talking about your choice, whatever that is. If it's to be child free, if it's to be an entrepreneur, wherever you feel safest in those conversations and most connected, that is what your body should feel like, in a place where you're going to have a conversation with somebody that wants to question it or wonder about it or whatever. Idealistic, I get it. But it's really grounding yourself in that place of where you made that decision, whatever that is in life, and spending some time there, spending some time with what it feels like in that body, why that decision was right for you and for your partner or for your community, whatever that looks like. That's where the truth lives. And everybody else who comes along, or every other ad or social media post or things that would challenge that, getting back in that perspective allows you to sort of just, let's fucking dance. These words are always so great too for me. Tell me more. More what you're thinking there. And then I really just get to be solidly in this place of steadfast. I also think that sometimes we get really block and bless is an unfortunate part of social media, because if you only surround yourself with people who think like you, sound like you, talk like you, we lose the perspective of so many other people, right? It doesn't mean I'm going to condone with you political ideals or whatever. And this is what I love about your podcast, is it is just such a great opportunity for people to have a safe place to hear conversations and understand about, why did my daughter choose not to have children? Or I don't understand my brother or my sister, whatever the deal is. That's such a beautiful opportunity you're giving so many people, because often the intention isn't to be, what the fuck is wrong with you? And that's not always the case. Obviously, you know this way better than me. But when there's some grace in that moment, whether that's true or not, I'm taking back the power and giving that back wherever they're stuck or they're worried or they're well-intentioned or not. It's not how you landed here.
That's right. The power through presence. It's such a full circle conversation. And I mean, I could talk to you forever. Like what you just said about social media and agree to disagree, and have we lost our ability to do that? Like there's so much to this, but I think it's really foundational what you've shared about our responsibility, our role, and how we connect to ourselves first. And then for people listening who maybe are, okay, I have some room to improve there, or maybe people are listening who feel like, wow, no, I'm really pretty good at this stuff. If that's you, congrats. Send me a DM and tell me how you did it. What do you say to people who come to you and they're like, okay, like, I've done the work, right? I'm in therapy. I've worked on myself. I want to be self-aware. I've taken the responsibility. I'm trying to be present. All these things that we try to do as self-development junkies, I think sometimes, but I'm still lonely. How do I find people? Whether it's because I feel like I haven't really had connections, or maybe I had connections and they're not working for me anymore. Just literally, how do you go connect and add to your village if you feel like it's lacking?
Love it. Two-part process that is never an end game. So you go in which is what we've talked about for the vast majority of this, right? What are we doing to regulate that nervous system on repeat? Then you go out. The greatest reason we're on this planet, I think, is to give it away. And in this loneliness epidemic, you are needed now more than you can ever wildly imagine. And so when you are regulated, you understand the power of your capacity to wave at your neighbor, to give a compliment, to stop by your work colleague's desk, to look into your partner's eyes and say, I don't know if I told you this enough, but you matter to me. To text your mom, to send flowers to your best friend. You lose access to that if you don't start in first. So I always say this, you go in, you go out, and you put that on relentless repeat. And people are like, is it really that simple? Yeah, that's it. Again, we can make this as complicated as we fucking want, right? But the idea is that when we get back to humanity, we are a species, I don't know how old, but we're not new here, okay? This is not new. We don't need to make this more complicated. The world has exploded that has really allowed us to get away from our optimal human operating system, which is really, we know. When we have a solid attachment, when we have a kin group, when we have rules and rituals, when we know how we're supposed to show up in our relationships or in our work, we will do better. And so when we start there and get this regulated and then start to understand that we are needed now in this world more than ever, whatever you got, you give it away on any given day. And I promise you it'll be more than enough. That's it. Put that on repeat. You will be happier, healthier, more connected than you've ever been.
Jody, I seriously think you're changing the world with this work. I want you to.
Me too.
Thank you so much for doing this. For everybody listening who is just as obsessed with you as I am, where is the best place for people to connect and to learn more from you?
Oh my gosh, I would love your community to be part of ours. Everything is on drjodycarrington.com, but I'm always hanging out on Instagram. I'm trying to hang out on TikTok. I have a podcast too. It's just when you have cool things to talk about, it's always, you would love the community who is as interested to be a part of it. So your people, I would love to be our people. So come on over.
Absolutely. We'll merge worlds and we'll all become more connected together. Beautiful. We'll make sure all of that is linked in the show notes. Thank you so, so much for the time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. Now I want to hear what you learned. DM me on Instagram at Curious Life of a Child-Free Woman or leave a review with your top takeaway. These ratings really do make a difference. If you're not a member of the Curious Life Club yet, you are invited. Visit CuriousLifeOfAChildFreeWoman.com to join the conversation, share suggestions, and be first to know the next curious topic. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week.